You're Never Weird on the Internet Almost, by Felicia Day. Picture this, a sleek Hollywood boardroom filled with executives in expensive suits, all scratching their heads in complete bewilderment. They're listening to Joss Whedon, yes, the future Avengers director, pitch something called Dr. Horrible's Sing-Along Blog. An internet musical. The suits are baffled. Sitting with Joss is a young woman with red hair who, according to him, looks about 14 years old. The so-called internet expert in the room confidently declares that they should chop the whole thing into 3-minute chunks for YouTube because, obviously, nobody watches anything longer than that. That's when the redhead speaks up. She completely takes over the conversation. Bandwidth, view counts, different platforms, monetization strategies. She speaks with this quiet, fierce authority that leaves the supposed expert speechless. Joss watches her in amazement. He later describes it as a Buffy moment. They never saw her coming. That young woman was Felicia Day, and honestly, that moment captures everything about her journey. Felicia is an actress, writer, producer, and genuine pioneer who built a media empire from her garage with a borrowed camera and an unashamed love for all things nerdy. Her memoir isn't just a collection of hilarious Hollywood stories and early internet adventures. It's a powerful guide for anyone who's ever felt like they don't quite fit in. It's proof that the very things that make you feel weird might actually be your secret weapons. By the time we're done here today, you won't just know Felicia's story. You'll understand something profound about the modern world. How to embrace your own unique weirdness, find your people, and build something meaningful that's entirely your own. Felicia Day's story starts with a confession. She was, in her own words, homeschooled for hippie reasons, not God reasons. Her childhood was anything but normal. No school buses, no cafeterias, definitely no prom. Instead, she ate carob instead of chocolate, took vitamins that made her breath smell weird, and got haircuts from her mom that can only be described as salad bowl chic. She did have a brief taste of regular elementary school, just long enough to learn 2 important lessons. First, she was never going to be one of those perfect girls with matching hair bows and dresses, so she became the leader of the misfits instead. Second, adults were surprisingly easy to please if you just acted perfect. Her conventional education ended abruptly after what she calls the money-burning incident of 1985. Picture this. A teacher at her conservative Lutheran school actually sets dollar bills on fire in front of 7-year-olds, calling it the devil's paper. When little Felicia reported this at home, her mother, who had a fierce sense of justice, was so outraged that she yanked her daughter out of that school, and soon after, out of school altogether. What followed was a decade of do-it-yourself education. Her mom ordered a missionary curriculum from a catalog, but the structured schedule lasted about a week. Soon, school became something that happened later, squeezed between grocery runs and midnight screenings of the Rocky Horror Picture Show. The one non-negotiable rule? She had to read, constantly, anything and everything. This isolation created a deep, sometimes lonely inner world. Her best friend was a little pink diary where she confided dreams of time travel, made serious vows never to marry for money, and worked through her complicated relationship with her brother, often ending entries with the heartfelt postscript, P.S. I hate Ryan Day, VETTIMANTLY. Without peers to judge her, her weird interests flourished without shame. She became obsessed with pulp detective novels, dreaming of becoming a glamorous secretary like Della Street from Perry Mason. She dove into mathematics, studying calculus by age 12, because her mom had read some uncredited study claiming that girls become really stupid in science after they get their period. She filled the social void with ballet, tap, watercolor, even a poise class held in the back of a department store. She was being trained to become a geisha, basically. This bizarre upbringing had a double effect. On one hand, it left her with deep social anxiety and a permanent sense of being an outsider. On the other hand, it gave her something priceless, the freedom to love what she loved without apology. She was, as she puts it, irrevocably weird, and that weirdness would become the foundation of her entire career. As a teenager searching for identity, she turned to the mystical, handwriting analysis, numerology, astrology. She was trying to find a blueprint for who she was supposed to be. For a while, she became the resident psychic for her ballet class, charting her classmates' romantic destinies, until one of the mothers complained she was practicing Satanism. But her true awakening came through video games. It started with text-only adventure games on a massive, table-sized laptop from her grandfather. Then she discovered a series called Ultima. This game was different. It began with a fortune teller asking moral questions, and your answers shaped your character. For a lonely girl searching for herself, this was revolutionary. The game, she says, saw into my soul. She was hooked, but she desperately needed to share this passion with actual people. That's when she discovered the early internet. On a service called Prodigy, she found a message board for a club called the Ultima Dragons. For the first time, she'd found her peers. These were people who understood her obsession, who'd read the same fantasy novels, who spoke her language. She adopted the screen name Codex Dragon and dove in. This online world became her social life. She flirted with boys through fan fiction and three-way phone calls, developing crushes on Wolf Dragon and Camouflage Dragon from New Jersey. The whole saga culminated in a real-life meetup that ended with her first kiss, a deeply awkward, parent-orchestrated moment in the back of a car in a Walmart parking lot. The romance didn't last, but the friendships did. That online community taught her a lesson that would define her life. No matter how lonely you feel, you can always find a place to belong online. Your only qualification is enthusiasm. Her intense, nerdy focus paid off in other ways. Thanks to violin skills honed by a terrifying but brilliant Russian teacher named Victor, she earned a full scholarship to the University of Texas at Austin at 16. But her dream of independence was crushed when she was too young to live in the dorms, so her mother drove her to college every single day for 4 years. College was another exercise in navigating the world as an outsider. She was a child prodigy among adults, a homeschooler dropped into a campus of 30,000 students. Her first instinct was to hide and become invisible. But her talent made that impossible. After a stunning orchestra audition, she was placed in the number 2 violin seat, right in front of all the seniors and grad students. The pressure was crushing. It came to a head during a master class where, convinced she'd failed in front of everyone, she burst into tears and ran from the room. Ironically, that vulnerable moment was a breakthrough. It showed everyone she wasn't some untouchable prodigy, just a scared kid like them. After that, people were much nicer, and she finally started making friends. At the same time, she was pursuing a second degree in mathematics, mostly to please her dad and grandfather. Her academic life was defined by a desperate need for perfection. She actually introduced herself at parties as Felicia Day. I have a 4.0. This obsession peaked in a notoriously difficult class called group theory. After getting a 23 on her first test, she was devastated. Her professor gave her wise advice. You know the best thing that could happen? Get a B in this class. Life would be so much easier for you. But she couldn't let it go. She spent the entire summer studying obsessively, eventually aced the final, and graduated with her perfect 4.0. Looking back, she realizes her professor was right. Chasing perfection for its own sake was a hollow victory. If she'd been easier on herself, she might have had more friendships and more fun. After graduating, she faced a crossroads. Everyone expected her to pursue a prestigious music career, but her heart wasn't in it. She wanted to find something she was truly passionate about, a dream she couldn't live without pursuing. So she packed her bags, took her savings, and moved to Los Angeles to become an actor. Hollywood was not the meritocracy she'd imagined. She arrived with this naive belief that talent and hard work would be enough. Her first acting job was for a sleazy horror film, where the director tried to convince her to do a nude scene. She refused, got a smaller part, and then the check for her work, all $90 of it, bounced. She was so proud of that bounced check, this perfect symbol of her rough start, that she had it ornately framed. The next few years were a frustrating grind. She took classes with an emotionally abusive acting coach, who told her she wasn't good at comedy and should focus on playing victims. Agents gave her contradictory advice: fix your teeth, lose weight, gain weight, dye your hair. Desperate for work, she started changing herself to fit what Hollywood wanted. She cut her hair, started wearing nerdy glasses, and cultivated a quirky persona. And it worked. She started booking commercials and recurring TV roles, finding her niche as the, quote, cat-owning, stalkery secretary. She was making decent money, but she was miserable. The roles were a pale shadow of who she truly was. Hollywood had no place for her geeky, weird, video game-loving inner self. She'd painted herself into a corner and didn't know how to escape. To cope with her career disillusionment, she returned to the one world that had always accepted her: online gaming. In 2005, her brother invited her to play a new game called World of Warcraft. This was more than a hobby. It was a lifeline. The game let her reconnect with her brother and gave her a sense of purpose and success missing from real life. While real-life Felicia struggled, her gnome warlock character, Keblerat, was becoming an A-list celebrity in a virtual world. But her obsessive personality took over. A few hours a night turned into an all-consuming addiction. She started raiding with her guild, which meant being online 8 to 10 hours at a time, 6 nights a week. She stopped going to acting classes, skipped auditions, and ignored real-life friends and her boyfriend. She was working a full-time, unpaid job inside World of Warcraft, and it was destroying her life. This intense gaming period became the inspiration for her greatest creation. The idea for The Guild, a comedy web series about online gamers, was born from her own addiction, but the journey from idea to reality was agonizing. She joined a women's support group, nicknamed Chicken, where she promised every week to write her pilot, but kept getting pulled back into the game. Finally, after months of lying to her friends and herself, she hit a breaking point. One night, she woke up with a full-blown panic attack and a terrifying realization. She was going to die someday, and if she didn't do something meaningful right now, her life would add up to nothing. In a desperate, 2-week frenzy over the Christmas holiday, fueled by sheer terror and determination, she finally wrote the script. She poured all her insecurities, social anxiety, and gamer experiences into the main character, Codex. The script was funny, authentic, and deeply personal. But when she took it to Hollywood, the response was universal confusion. Producers didn't understand online gaming. One executive told her to take all the gaming stuff out. Her friend from the support group, Kim Evie, suggested something radical. Have you thought of doing this project for the internet? At the time, YouTube was brand new, a wild frontier. The idea was terrifying, but also empowering. For the first time, Felicia realized she didn't need anyone's permission. She could just make it. With a shoestring budget of $1.500 split between herself, Kim, and director Jane, they set out to film the first episodes. It was pure DIY. Felicia became obsessed with scavenging for props, trolling alleys, and FreeCycle for anything usable. She pulled favors from everyone she knew, held open auditions, and shot the entire show in her own brightly colored house, which was quickly overrun by cast and crew. When the first episodes were finished, she launched a one-woman marketing blitz, spending 18 hours straight emailing hundreds of gaming bloggers with personally tailored messages. Her obsessive outreach worked. The show found an audience. People started watching, commenting, sharing. Then one day, YouTube featured The Guild on its front page, and everything exploded. Suddenly, the same Hollywood companies that had rejected her were calling. But every offer came with strings. They wanted to own the show, change it, take away her control. Remembering the misery of being forced into a box, she refused them all. Instead, she put a simple PayPal donation button on their website. To her astonishment, fans donated enough money to fund the next episode, and then the next. She'd bypassed the gatekeepers entirely, building a career fan by fan. The success of the Guild and her role in Joss Whedon's Dr. Horrible's sing-along blog catapulted her into a new kind of fame. She became a superstar at events like San Diego Comic-Con, a world where she felt completely at home. These conventions, she explains, are a real-life version of the internet at its best, a place where you're never weird, because you're surrounded by people who are weird just like you. But success brought its own challenges. She launched her own YouTube channel, Geek and Sundry, and found herself running a multi-million-dollar company. The pressure was crushing. She worked 18-hour days, managed employees, and tried to maintain her acting career. The joy of creating was replaced by the stress of running a business. At the same time, she had to face the reality that the Guild was ending. The show had been her entire identity for 6 years. Without it, she felt lost. This combination of overwork and identity crisis led to a severe nervous breakdown. She suffered nightly panic attacks, crippling depression, and even memory loss. On the outside, she was at the height of success. On the inside, she was falling apart. Only when the mental stress manifested as serious physical illness was she finally forced to get help. The experience taught her a hard but vital lesson about the danger of tying your self-worth to your work. Success isn't a finish line, and you have to know how to take care of yourself. Her final and most profound test came in 2014 with Gamergate, a toxic online movement that began with harassment of a female game developer and spiraled into a widespread campaign of misogyny and bullying. For years, Felicia had been a positive advocate for women in gaming, but watching this wave of hatred wash over the community she loved, she was afraid to speak out. She'd been targeted before and knew the personal cost. But one day, walking down the street, she saw 2 guys in gaming t-shirts. Normally, she would have smiled, a silent acknowledgement of shared passion. But this time, she felt a pang of fear and crossed the street to avoid them. In that moment, she realized the poison had spread too far. She went back to her hotel and wrote a heartfelt blog post about her fear, her love for the gaming community, and why the hostility had to stop. Within an hour of posting it, her personal information, home address and phone number was released online. Her fears had come true. But despite the terror and violation, she knew she'd done the right thing. The internet had given her a voice, and she had a responsibility to use it. If she, a prominent woman in the industry, was too afraid to speak, who would? In the end, Felicia's story comes full circle. She sold her company, found a healthier work-life balance, and continues creating things she's passionate about. She shares a wonderful story about visiting Skywalker Ranch and seeing a prop from Star Wars, a piece of the Death Star, made from spray-painted Dixie cups. For her, that humble object was the most inspiring thing she'd ever seen. It was proof that you don't need a massive budget or studio approval to create something iconic. All you need is a vision, the courage to pursue it, and the willingness to be as weird as you want to be. What I find so powerful about Felicia Day's story is how beautifully it captures the journey of a creative person in the 21st century. It's about the courage to be different in a world that often demands conformity. For so many of us, especially when we're young, there's this immense pressure to fit in. We hide the things we love, the weird hobbies and passions, because we're afraid of being judged. Felicia's memoir is a resounding declaration that those unique parts of you aren't just okay, they're your superpower. Her entire career was built on the very thing she was once isolated for, her love of video games, fantasy novels, and all things geeky. It's a profound reminder that authenticity is the most valuable currency you have. The book also serves as an incredible blueprint for navigating the modern creative landscape. For generations, if you wanted to be an artist, writer, or performer, you had to go through the gatekeepers, the studios, publishers, record labels. You had to ask for permission. Felicia's story is about what happens when you decide to stop asking. The moment she and her friends decided to make the Guild themselves, using their own money and homes, they took their destiny into their own hands. The internet provided a direct line to an audience hungry for exactly what she was creating. This lesson is more relevant today than ever. The tools to create and distribute your work are at your fingertips. You don't have to wait to be discovered. You can build your own stage. But perhaps the most important and resonant theme is the cautionary tale about success and self-worth. It's easy to look at someone like Felicia and see only the achievements, the hit show, successful company, millions of fans. But she's brutally honest about the cost, the addiction, burnout, crippling anxiety. Her breakdown serves as a vital warning against letting your work become your entire identity. She reminds us that you have to nurture your own well-being, set boundaries, and learn to say no. Your value as a person isn't measured by your view count, subscriber number, or professional accomplishments. Finding that balance between ambition and self-care, between connecting with community and protecting your peace, is the ultimate quest. So what can we take away from this? I think it comes down to a few simple actions. First, take an inventory of your own weirdness. What's the one passion you have that you don't always share? This week, find one small way to embrace it. Join an online forum, read a book about it, or share it with a trusted friend. Second, start your own Dixie Cup project. Think of one small, creative thing you've always wanted to do. Write a short story, film a 1-minute video, draw a comic. Don't worry about it being perfect. Just make it. The act of creating, of bringing something into the world that didn't exist before, is its own reward. Also, if you found this summary valuable and want to continue exploring the ideas that shape successful and fulfilling lives, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It lets us know we're on the right track and ensures you won't miss our next deep dive into another life-changing book. Let's keep learning and growing together.